I should like analyze this better, I guess.
Well,
And then,
your passages, I love what you're doing with your passages. You've already added into the things that, like from where you've started, your passages have already improved a lot, meaning that I can see that there's notation there.
Mhm.
However, the notation in it, I probably would say you still need to be a little, probably like underline a little less, but focus more on maybe on the side writing a little bit about what it means so you don't have to read as hard
yeah.
when you go back through it. Now, when I look at your answer choices for your questions, okay, the first thing is that there's no notation breaking down the question, and there's no notation breaking down each of your answer choices, okay? What I notice between students who tend to do, all right on the SAT, ACT, and students who tend to do super duper well, it all comes down to what happens during their test, okay? If you look at your answer choices, what I want you to start to do is the ones that you've gotten wrong, let's say here, number 20, okay? Based on the passage, both would agree on which of the following claims. All right. The first thing is that the one that you got wrong, I want you to go through this answer. The ethical obligations of women are often undervalued. Which word in there is wrong? I'm guessing it's going to be either ethical obligations. It's probably not an ethical obligation that they talk about, or something about the undervalue of it, right? Or if it actually is something that they talk about, that's not what they both would agree on. One person is, pro, one person is negative, right? Con. Okay? So we need to make sure that you go through, and on the side of this, give me a note. Let's do that right now. Go through and figure out why C is wrong, and I want you to actively cross that word out or write that down next to your answer choice. Because what you'll notice is the ones that you've gotten wrong are of, 2 to 3 different types of issues. Too specific, too general, right? There's like 1 or 2 words wrong in the actual answer choice, or it's just completely off. Okay, but most of the time they're giving you degrees and percentages correct. Okay, if that sentence had 10 words in it, 1 word is incorrect, so 90% of that sentence is correct. Or the sentence is 100% correct, but it's not correct in terms of the question they're asking. They love to do that kind of crap to you, okay? They'll give you something that sounds perfect, that comes right out of the essay or right out of that passage, but it's not going to be answering the thing that they're asking. It's just going to be a true statement, but in the wrong darn place, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
So go through, analyze that one, tell me why it is that C was wrong, and then go through A and tell me what all of that should be correct, but then B and D, cross out the word in B and D, or the words in B and D that make them incorrect. Okay? Make sure you answer the actual question that they're asking. In this situation, you found all the right numbers, all the right, equations. I was looking at it, I was like, okay, maybe you didn't FOIL it right. No, you did that right. You got the right X equation, right? You solved the right answer. You actually factored it perfectly. And then you boxed something and you went right into it and you're done. Yeah. Okay? But I will tell you, every question you need to treat as if it's one of those tricky questions. As if, you know what, I found something, but I'm not sure if I'm answering what they want me to answer. I might have found R, but they're going to ask me to go back and give me circumference. Or I might have found an X, but they're going to ask for a 3X instead. So I want to make it, just like in the English section where you have specific notes that you have to cross out and things that you give yourself, a visual to go back to. I want you to do that with this. Go unbox your question. Right where the question is asked, it should have said length, right? Yeah. You need to make sure that's what you focus on there. Okay? And in a little bit, I'm actually going to have you go back through all the questions that you did miss. Do the same thing with that, and we're going to redo each of those questions to make sure that you understand how to do them. Okay? Right after is, what are the specific strategies that give you an advantage that aren't necessarily taught in school? Because school is, I feel a lot of the questions that school asks you are very, brainless. They're routine, okay? Solve for X, right? Yeah. Find this answer. Okay, yes. But the thing is, we also read those questions in a manner and expect a certain thing. Because, how, in your math textbook, it's like one entire section of 20 questions is all one thing. And so you get used to the pattern of just, okay, isolate this variable, circle it, that's your answer. And if you do that on the test for math, did you notice how many of these where you did that and it was just like, oh crap, like there was one more step I needed to do. That's their favorite trick. That's trick number 1 for math, right? But then what did they do for English? What was the thing that they did?
Not all of the answers like 100%.
Yeah, the answers have variability in terms of how much the answer is correct. And so some of the answers have, 1 or 2 words in there that match perfectly. I hate it when they give you something that sounds almost perfect, sounds like the right answer, but there's 1 word in it or it doesn't apply to the right question, right? And here's something that you want to notice is when the words of a answer choice match up almost too perfectly, right? Almost verbatim, perfectly. Be a little extra critical about it. Oh, is it always that way, or is that, and then the key words to also look out for are what we consider absolutes, right? Mrs. Smith never goes to the grocery store, never does this, or always, okay? In those situations, you want to consider, is that really true? Is that what this passage actually said, right? And then look for synonyms, like earlier, there was it moral and ethical, right? Obligations and duties. Those matched up, but then it was a very specific question that one person agreed, one person disagreed with, and that's why the answer was wrong, right? Do you see how the statement itself was actually true and applicable to part of the actual passage, but not to the question they were asking? So it's all this like misdirection mumbo jumbo, if you think about it. They're doing their best to trick the hell out of you so that they actually have variability with their scores, okay? This test, I would say you read to just answer these questions, right? You read and you go, okay, that looks the best one, and I'm going to move on, all right? But as you learn how the test is made, you are actually criticizing everything about the past or the answer choices once you get to them. And as you criticize them, you're using the passage as evidence of where those things exist or do not exist. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's almost like a completely different approach to the test versus just reading, okay, here are the answers. It's saying, okay, the little things that I might get confused about, they're going to do their best to try to continue to confuse me. But I'll need to go make sure that I find the specific words and the specific parts of the passage that actually say what it's actually saying. I need to make sure that I go and actually answer the right part of the question, because if I give you length instead of width, if I give you circumference instead of the area, it'll make a very big difference when it comes down to construction or things like that in the future, right? So this is still a test upon how well are you paying attention. And one thing to keep in mind is it's very hard to pay attention for 4 straight hours and not have any sort of mishaps happen within it, okay? So making sure that your body's a well-oiled machine and ready for this test in that manner is another thing to think about, okay?